everyone. I'm Susan.
I'm Tab.
And we are MCU Explained, coming to you not only from the Sanctum, but also Thor's Arena from Ragnarok. I cannot think of the name of the planet. Oh my God.
Oh, Sakar.
Yes!
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of Jeff Goldblum and his cool lipstick, and that's all I can think of right now.
Yeah.
But apologies on the late episode this week. There have been, I don't know if you guys have heard, there have been some odd weathers happening across the country, and we were stuck in that. So, hence the car.
Yeah, that's why I'm in Sakar now, because there's power here.
Yeah, and you were just like, you know what? Peace out, Earth. I'm headed off planet.
Gotta go.
Gotta go. There's no power here. But we are back with MCU Explained to talk about episode six of WandaVision. Oh my God, I've lost track, but this has been an epic week for WandaVision.
It really has.
That felt really short.
I know, they all feel short.
I know, but they said that the next three, all the 7, 8, and 9 are all going to be an hour.
Allegedly. It was confirmed, and then it was unconfirmed, and then it was confirmed. Like, so I don't know.
All right, fine.
Yeah. I would imagine that the last 2 will be longer.
They better be. There's a lot to cover, and also Tab and I have formed new opinions.
Yeah.
So episode 6.
The all-new Halloween Spooktacular was the title.
Crazy.
And it starts right away with the opening credits, which are based on Malcolm in the Middle.
Yeah. And hilariously, I could not stand that show, and my siblings adored it. So I was forced to watch that show so much that I recognized it as Malcolm in the Middle instantly, but then was like, really? So I will say I enjoyed this parody of Malcolm in the Middle much more than I enjoyed the actual show.
So the lyrics to the opening song were very upsetting about being nothing's real and everything's chaos and just go with it.
I normally like that's normally like you pay attention to that and then tell me during the show, but I heard those lyrics and was like, oh man, really?
Oh no. Yeah.
That's where we're at in this show. That's
what's happening. Yeah, nothing's real. Uh-oh. And then when it opens, we have Billy talking to the camera like Malcolm did on Malcolm in the Middle.
So interesting choice that it was Billy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I really liked that it was Billy, mostly because we know that Billy is Wiccan. So it's kind of nice to have like Billy take over that, like because when we started the show, it was very much like Wanda. So to have the kid that has her powers be the one that's the narrator was really cool for me specifically. Also, I'm just a big fan of Wiccan, so.
Yeah, and plus he was dressed like Wiccan. His Halloween costume was his future self.
It was adorable.
And then he's talking to Tommy, and they talk about how Pietro is asleep on the couch at 4, and they're afraid to wake him up because he's secretly a vampire. Yeah, and he opens his eye.
Classic sitcom like uncle.
Yes, he nailed the sitcom uncle, and also because Malcolm in the Middle, he reminded me a lot of the oldest brother on that show that was sort of in and out. Yeah. Evan Peters, so great, just nailing it.
I just texted you this week that I was like, I think I have a crush on Evan Peters. He's so good in this episode, like beyond how he interacted with Billy and Tommy, like the child actors, like just the way he kind of, every time Wanda questioned him, because that was such an interesting thing that happened throughout the entire episode. Every time Wanda questioned him, he had an answer. And he just, for me, stole the episode.
He really did. And as we've said many times, no matter who he ends up being, I hope they keep him in the MCU.
For sure. Absolutely.
So Wanda comes downstairs and she is herself. She is the Scarlet Witch, classic original costume. Yeah.
Can't do it because the Sanctum apparently doesn't like that headpiece, but whatever, I tried.
And she says she's a Sokovian fortune teller. So they do that great little flashback to trick or treating in Sokovia, which was hilarious.
It was
Um,
cute.
and some people have pointed out that as kids, they looked like they were dressed like Nat and Nick Fury. Um, yeah, because he has the
Oh,
eye patch and she has the braid. And she also has bug antennas, which some people were like, well, she can't be Nat. And I was like, but Spider.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
true.
yeah,
Spiders, Black Widow. Come on, she
yeah.
can totally be Nat.
Um, and then Vision comes downstairs and he is also wearing his classic comic book look.
P.S. Love that they made fun of the fact that it was because she has a thing for luchador.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how else they're gonna explain it. It doesn't really look
There
like.
was no other way to explain it. It was perfect, and I was just like, that's hilarious. What an
Yeah.
excellent way to explain this ridiculous outfit that he used to wear.
Yeah, and also very again a very Malcolm in the Middle sort of aside where the parents are like, "Oh, I know you know, you're
Yeah,
into this," and then they do the Spanish chili
yeah.
con carne.
And then when he was like, "Rawr," like he
Yeah.
like, I was like, oh no, you didn't.
Yeah,
Again,
he was
I imagine Paul Bettany thirst tweets just spiked with that.
I'm sure they did. He was really, and plus he was channeling some Bryan Cranston in this episode because he was
Oh,
the
for
dad
sure,
on Malcolm in the
for
Middle.
sure. He was definitely Malcolm in the Middle dad, especially in that scene. They did
Yeah.
such a good job of parodying that show. Like I said, better than the actual show. Sorry, fans of Malcolm in the Middle. I was not one. I love Bryan Cranston. So
Yeah.
anyway, and Jane, what's her name, who plays the
Oh, the
judge
mom.
in The Simpsons, who's the mom.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
she's
love the
great.
parents, hated the kids.
Vision, when he first comes down and says that that was the only thing in his closet, he's cranky. But then he plays along, says the luchador thing, um, but then says that he's gonna go do neighborhood watch and not go trick or treating. And Wanda says that's not what you're supposed to. And he gives her a look. And he is being very firm.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm either she can't control him anymore or she's trying not to.
I personally thought she couldn't control him anymore.
Yeah, I kind of think that's what it is too. Um, Especially now that he's more aware of what is
Right,
going on.
right,
Sort of like at first Wanda didn't seem to know what was going on and only had like confusing flashes that something was off or not right. And then the more she figured out, the more she would control.
right.
So, um, but she does like relent.
Mm-hmm.
And before he leaves, he tells her to be good, which terrifying.
It was, I just was like, I liked that because it was like one of the only times we've seen Vision take control, you know?
Yes.
Because Vision doesn't take, like, yes, he spends most of this episode kind of defying a lot of things that he was told throughout the series, but that was something where he actually put himself in control of Wanda for like a split second, you know, like he
Yes.
did.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, and so Pietro, Peter, um, he is gonna go trick or treating with them instead. He runs out, gets a Quicksilver classic costume, and he has Tommy wearing the same thing. But we all know Tommy is Speed, so it is still an homage to what he is in the future.
Right.
Um, Speed's clothes usually are more green, and
Yeah,
Quicksilver was blue.
they're like green. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're just dressed the same. And then we go to Sword. And Jimmy and Darcy and Monica have had it with Hayward. They are over it.
Rightfully so.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Um, and they make some great points, including Monica's, that they have no idea what will happen in the barrier or even in the real world if Wanda dies. They don't know what the results of that would be.
Right.
And she says if Wanda's the problem, she needs to be the solution.
Right.
Yes.
Which is
Yes.
fair.
Yeah, totally fair. And Hayward gets rude and sassy with her. Um, and he says she's constantly advocating on behalf of superpowered individuals. And he says it with such like vitriol and hatred that I really think his thing is going to be anti-super.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was
Yeah.
actually thinking that like it's possible that they could do the version of um like they could do like Civil War 2 essentially with
Mhm.
a super versus non-super, or like they do with the X-Men constantly in the comics with like mutant, non-mutant, like
Yeah, I was thinking maybe that they would do anti-super instead of anti-mutant,
yeah,
um,
we
because
still
that
don't
will,
really know how they're gonna address mutants in the MCU yet. So
yeah,
super versus
um,
non-super is a good way, especially because they brought up the Sokovian Accords in another episode. It kind of seems like they're setting up something that's like, look, these didn't work because of, and this event still happened, so we need to go bigger with our anti-super movement.
yeah, something,
Something like
yeah. And he also says that the people who left don't know what it was like
that.
during the blip, um, which I mean that's fair, but him saying that on the tail of like the superpower thing is weird.
Right, because the supers that survived the blip were like Cap and Widow, and like they don't seem like the, I mean, granted they are ones that didn't sign the accords.
Maybe,
So
yeah, maybe that's why he was mad.
maybe that's the issue he has, but at the same time it's not like the ones that were left behind are ones that like to like, like Thor just went off and drank, and you know, Bruce seemed to spend his time just like merging himself with Hulk. So that seemed like a solitary thing. I just really don't see what happened in those 5 years that he's referring to there.
Yeah. Um, and especially like we know that they were working really hard, Carol and Nebula and Rocket and Rhodey were all like doing everything they could to try and hold things together,
Hey.
and the Wakandans too. Um, so yeah, I mean, the only one that I could point to and say, "Oh, he did a bad thing," is Hawkeye.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
but Hawkeye doesn't actually have powers.
Hawkeye doesn't actually have powers.
He's just really good at something, which is
Uh,
powerful in and of itself. But because I know that there are some Hawkeye fans who are going to watch this. I'm a Hawkeye fan too. Love Hawkeye, but technically he doesn't have powers.
mhm.
So
Yep.
you're going to go after superpowered individuals.
Yeah, he's not.
Anyway,
Um, and then Hayward really gets in Monica's face about her mom dying. Garbage human
garbage
being.
human, right there, right there. I was
Um,
so mad at him for that.
yeah. And so they've said the whole time that there's multiple villains in the show. Obviously Hayward is one of
Oh
them.
yeah,
It's
for sure.
very clear. We just don't know what his agenda is yet.
Yeah.
And he kicks out the three favorite sword people, Jimmy, Darcy, and Monica. And then as soon as they get outside, Jimmy starts punching, and so does Monica. And it's fantastic. And Darcy is just like, "Oh, what's happening?" Which I loved.
You get your own show now, right? Right?
Yeah, I give Jimmy a show. I want to watch his show. uh, and then it cuts to trick or treating with the kids. And here's where Peter starts saying a whole bunch of stuff like unleash hell demon spawn to the kids, which is clearly a nod to Mephisto and the origins of the twins, whether or not
Yeah.
that's what's
Whether or
going
not
on
that's a
here.
thing, I know that we've been saying hardcore that we think it's a thing. I think it might be a thing. I don't know. I've gone soft on this opinion now.
Yes. Same.
Both of us have gone soft on this opinion.
Yeah.
Which is kind of the best part of doing something like this, is that we can move along with the show as it goes and have
Yeah.
hardline opinions and then kind of like back down from them as more is revealed.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're all, I mean, they're all educated guesses. They've had Mephisto stuff in every single episode, but it might turn out that that's the red herring.
Right. They
Um,
love their red herrings.
they do. And they
Comic
know
books love red herrings more.
they know Marvel fans are looking for it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So this is when Wanda starts to ask Peter a bunch of questions, which he never answers. He always turns it around back on her.
A single one. He
Did not answer.
every single one with a question aimed at her to make her answer something.
Mm-hmm. He says, "You're testing me." He says he knows he looks different.
Yeah.
But he doesn't know why.
Yeah.
And then he says that he uses a metaphor, but he basically says that, you know, maybe you made me look this way because you didn't want to be reminded of what happened.
Yeah.
Kind of, maybe. And then they get interrupted by the kids. And then they all say kick ass, which is adorable because
then she repeats it after, which I love, because I was like, because both Quicksilvers were in Kick Ass. In case you guys know that, both the Quicksilvers were in Kick Ass together.
Yeah. Aaron Taylor Johnson is kick ass.
Yeah.
And then Evan Peters was his friend in the movie.
Yeah.
So while so Wanda talks to Herb, who we hadn't seen in a while. Here he is, doing the neighborhood watch, dressed as a Frankenstein. And he tells her that Vision isn't on duty, which surprises her. She didn't know. She doesn't know when Vision's lying to her, which is interesting too.
Which is really interesting.
And then Herb says, "Is there something I can do? Do you want something changed?" What is that?
I have no idea what that is, but to me, it hinted that maybe Herb is someone more than we've given him credit for.
Yes.
Because, I mean, and to be fair, retroactively looking back, he was the one with Agnes outside when they were talking about, you know, Geraldine not belonging. He was aware of that. When he was cutting the fence, he knew he was cutting the fence, but kept doing it and was like, meh. Like, so he's been at least semi-aware, more so than some of the other characters who they have to like wake up. We'll get into that whole thing because that got tricky this episode too. But but maybe this is another clue that Herb is someone more than we have thought the whole time.
Yeah. Maybe he is. And I would love to know that if she had said, "Yes, I want something changed," what would have happened, but she didn't.
Yeah. I was like, can Herb change us? Interesting.
Interesting. Can change what? Like move a pumpkin or like change all the colors of these houses? What are we talking here?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then during that whole thing is when Quicksilver and the kids were bashing pumpkins and spraying silly string and just generally wreaking havoc. We go to Vision, who is walking towards the edge of town. He is at the area of town where people look like they're stuck in little loops. Like the woman is hanging the thing, the guy behind her is like repeatedly putting the pumpkin down. Yeah, she had a tear, which they edited out of a lot of the of the previews and stuff because they've shown her before.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're stuck and obviously don't want to be.
Right.
And also there's kids everywhere now, which Peter does comment on later, but this is when because it was Vision by himself walking around and just so many kids, and that's when it really hit me, like, he asked where the kids were. Here's a lot of them.
Yeah.
And then it went to the commercial break. The most confusing commercial they've done. Super threw me.
Super threw me too. And I have dumb brain, and I was like, "Is this a real commercial?" Stupid. It's not. It's not a real pencil.
They did do a great job as a 90s child.
Oh
I
yeah, it's
remember
a
those
90s
commercials.
style. That looks like Dunkaroos. It looks like Dunkaroos was the instant one that I thought of because
Yeah. And
of
then
claymation kangaroo.
just a lot of commercials in the 90s, kids commercials in the 90s for whatever reason had like this weird existential terror and dread and like
And
horribleness.
also a lot of sharks. There were
A lot of
a
sharks.
lot of kids products that had sharks in them in the 90s for no reason.
Yeah, gotta have a shark. Um, so it's the kid on the island, he's starving, he's so hungry he'd eat anything. Then the shark pops up and tells him to snack on Yo Magic, which is like a yogurt looking thing.
Gogurt. It
Yeah,
looks like Gogurt.
yeah.
Yeah.
And he gives it to the kid and leaves, but the kid can't open the container, so he dies. And like time, we see time passing. And the tagline is Yo Magic, the snack for survivors.
Yeah, that
As,
was really confusing. Do we like was the voice of the shark or the kid the actor who's been in all of them? You don't know?
oh, that's interesting. I don't know. The shark actually might have been.
Yeah, I thought, well, I mean, probably not the kid, but I thought the shark maybe could have been just because this is the one that we haven't been able to identify the same actor or actress in either role.
That is true. Um, it's also to connect it to her traumas. The thing to me that it seems to match up with is when she was in the superhero prison,
Yeah,
isolated, she couldn't access her magic, all that.
yeah.
Um, and then for if it relates to one of the Infinity Stones, like we think they do, it would be the
I don't
Soul
think we've
Stone.
talked about that
We
actually
haven't.
yet.
We also just quick side thing. We noticed that a lot of all the commercials have imagery that matches with one of the Infinity Stones. Um, the toaster had the Mind Stone on it.
The
The
watch obviously is the time
Time
stone,
Stone. The bubble bath one had the blue cube box.
and then the spilling of the red liquid looked like the ether.
Yeah.
And
Um,
this one I couldn't. I seriously like texted yours like, which stone would this be?
yeah. Yeah, so the closest I could get, I think, is the Soul Stone. A lot of the like sun rising and the night thing reminded me of Vormir and like that kind of thing. And you have to die to get the Soul Stone. Someone
Yeah.
has to die. Um, as far as that goes, but man, it sure does seem like I'm missing something.
Yeah, I mean, if each one of those commercials is her dealing with something in her past, like we think it is, like obviously there's no confirmation that we're right in any sort of way. However, it does seem like she's dealing, like the commercials are a way of like accessing her subconscious mind somehow, like
Yeah.
if the town and the sitcom are what is happening in her conscious mind, to bring a little psychology into this, I feel like the commercials are something that she like trauma she's not dealing with or parts of her life that she's compartmentalized in order to have a perfect life. And in terms of whatever this one is, it's real confusing.
It's real
Um,
confusing. You could say that you could also say that it breaks the pattern and it's about what's currently going on.
yeah,
Um, is
or it
someone
could break the
trying,
pattern in the just the order of them, and she obviously had to kill Vision twice, so
yeah.
it could have to do with that too.
And it also could just be what's happening now. Someone could be trying to get to her magic, but they can't.
Yeah,
Or they are, and it's hurting her. But right now, she seems okay.
yeah, for sure. And maybe this is something that's like all will be revealed like all of a sudden maybe next week's commercial
Yeah,
it's going to make this one make a lot more sense. I don't know, but
yeah,
so far I'm still with the theory of their traumas or their things that she's not dealing with, or it's her grief that's maybe causing other people pain. But I just I'm loving these commercials. I was just super confused by this one.
Yeah, that one was really, really threw me. Yeah. You could also even say that like the kid is Vision. Without Wanda's magic, he'll die.
Right.
There's just a lot that it could be.
Magic himself.
Yeah.
He needs help.
Yeah.
Magic. Yeah, there's so much.
There's so much. Okay. So we go back to the trick-or-treating. We're in the town square area. The movies playing in the theater in the background are The Incredibles and The Parent Trap. And I thought The Parent Trap was particularly funny because that's essentially what Quicksilver's doing. He's the twin and he's switched with the other twin.
Yeah.
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 It was super funny. That's why I was confused by The Incredibles being on that because of the fact that it came out in the early 2000s and not the 90s.
Oh yeah. So they were doing, I guess, late 90s, early aughts.
Yeah, it blended the decades because I was fairly certain that The Incredibles came out in the early 2000s.
Yeah, you were right. So she's telling Pete that he's a bad influence, and he says that great "who beefed in your borscht" line, which I loved. And he says, "I'm just trying to do my part. Isn't this what you wanted?" This is where she says, "What happened to your accent?" And he says, "What happened to yours?" Turns it around.
Yeah.
He says the details of the past for him are fuzzy. He remembers getting shot, and then he heard her calling him, and I guess just appeared. Real suspect.
Real suspect.
Real suspect. Convenient that he can't remember.
Yeah.
But also fair because initially Wanda didn't remember when she was in there. Vision still doesn't remember. Mm-hmm. But that also assumes that he's under the same mind control as everyone else.
So assumes that he's following the same rules as everybody else.
Yes.
I don't know that he is.
And then we see that Tommy has super speed because he is speed.
He is speed.
Yes. And she makes him take Billy with him, which was cute. She says, "Don't go past Ellis Avenue." So which is our first time hearing about where we don't go. And then it goes back to Sword, where Monica and Jimmy and Darcy are sneaking around because they're gonna get up in Hayward's biz now. So Darcy gets into the system, and they can see that Hayward's been able to see inside the boundary, which means he must have a head count of how many people are there, and he's tracking Vision, not Wanda, which is alarming.
Yeah.
And then Jimmy notices the people at the edge of town, as we've already seen, are barely moving. Mm-hmm. And he even says, "Are they alive?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just thought that was interesting because it made me wonder what, since Vision was taken apart at Sword, what could have been put back together with him. Like, there might be something in Vision
additionally
that would require tracking by Sword.
Yes, they may have been trying to make him a super weapon.
Which is interesting because they brought up that in his living will, he did not want to be weaponized. So maybe they broke it first.
Maybe. I'm pretty sure Hayward did.
Oh, yeah. Hayward was able.
So it cuts back to Vision. He's at the edge of town where basically no one's moving. They're all just standing in place. There are a lot of dogs barking. Did you notice that?
No, I did not notice that.
The background noise is so many dogs barking, and I was like, that is weird because we've only seen the one dog.
Yeah.
And we haven't seen any others, and now there's all these dogs barking here over at the edge of the boundary. It was yeah.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's because she can't control dogs.
Maybe. Yeah. It didn't seem like she could.
Yeah. That's true. She couldn't control Sparky.
Yeah. So Vision realizes these people aren't conscious. They're not going to notice, and he morphs into his normal looking self and floats up in the air to get a look at things. And he sees that there's a car just stopped. So he goes over there, and it's Agnes, and she's dressed as a witch.
Ah,
Because of course she is.
because of course she is.
She's a witch.
Yeah.
And she is right at Ellis Avenue, the boundary that they're not supposed to cross. And she is out of it. This is the only time we've really seen her out of it. She's confused, she's disoriented, she looks like she's about to cry, she's lost, even though this is her home.
Right.
So Vision wakes her up, and she recognizes him as an Avenger and asks for help. Vision doesn't know what an Avenger is because he doesn't remember anything before Westview.
Right. So
And
go ahead.
oh, and then she asks if she's dead because
Yeah.
Vision is dead.
So a couple of things here. One, I do still think she's Agatha Harkness.
I do too.
However, I also believe that she is not immune to whatever's going on, in spite of like possibly being a bit awake inside of everything.
Yes.
Now,
she might be awake in the way that Wanda's awake.
right. Now, is this like her being at the edge of town is confusing to me, because if she's like aware the way we think she's aware, why would she go to the border in the first place? Because she has to kind of at least know where the border is, and she probably would know that she loses her wokeness, I don't know what to call it, her consciousness or whatever it is, the further away from Wanda she gets.
Sure.
So my question, like, I don't understand why she would do this. Like, what is she doing there? Unless it's simply to mess with Vision.
My guess. So now let's get into, as Susan mentioned, we both softened a little on whether or not Mephisto's the villain in favor of it possibly being a villain called Nightmare. And
I love Nightmare. The idea of it being Nightmare makes me so happy. And I'm a little bummed that I didn't think of Nightmare first. I am bummed about that. I should have thought of him because I do really love him. It's hard to be a Doctor Strange fan and not also enjoy Nightmare and his antics.
Yes. Yeah, and he can do you want to give a quick background on Nightmare?
Nightmare basically is Freddy Krueger in the Marvel universe, for a very simple explanation. He can affect your subconscious mind, makes you hallucinate, makes you see things that aren't there. He mostly affects you while you're asleep or in some sort of like hypnotic state. But he just messes with your brain in general, and could create a situation like one that we have in Westview, where and so that the idea of it being Nightmare could explain why Wanda has no idea how this happened, because like she could be in a semi hypnotic asleep state somewhere, and Nightmare could be messing with her from that place. It could like that to me, it is a very real possibility. And Nightmare can also possess people. So,
Yes.
which brings us back to what
right. So maybe Agnes is sometimes possessed by Nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's when she's very cognizant of what's going on, and maybe he left in favor of possessing someone else that's there now, and she is aware enough to try and leave.
Right.
Maybe she was trying to escape.
Right. Because if you were possessed by Nightmare, you probably wanted GTFO.
Yeah. And Nightmare, one of the things that he did, because he rules over his own dimension, which is the Nightmare dimension, and basically he takes you there when you're asleep. Yeah. But he also took over a nightclub on Earth one time and made it into like this club nightmare, so
Yeah.
that people going in would have the nightmare stuff things. And that reminded me a lot of the town. Like
Yes.
maybe he's taken over a town instead of a nightclub.
Yes, that's something that can happen. Also, again, if you're a big, if you enjoy Doctor Strange at all, you will also enjoy the fact that he's weirdly obsessed with Stephen Strange. So
Yes.
he's always kind of like, to bring in this other fandom because I don't know how else to explain it in like a really good way. He's kind of like the Q to Captain Picard. Like he's weirdly obsessed with Stephen Strange because Stephen Strange operates in a way that he cannot fathom. So
Yeah.
it's really fun. And if this show is leading into Doctor Strange 2 Multiverse of Madness, the idea that this could be Nightmare is very possible.
Yes. 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 So
Fun.
yeah, there's our new hot take on the villain.
Yeah.
Um,
But they said there's multiple villains. So
they did. Yes.
Mephisto working with Nightmare because someone, I forget which MCU channel pointed this out. I'm very sorry to the YouTuber who pointed this out that I don't remember while I was watching the video. Someone pointed out that there was someone dressed as a devil in the back of the trick or treating. So like,
yeah, they're coming hard with all that devil imagery and stuff
yeah,
like
and
that.
so maybe all the devil imagery is just total red herrings for people to latch onto Mephisto, and then they can do the Nightmare twist at the end, or maybe they're working together.
Or maybe they're working together.
That would be awful for everyone.
Maybe initially Agnes was working with one of them and now she doesn't want to anymore. Especially if Wanda is sometimes able to take over her free will.
Yeah.
She does say that Wanda won't let us leave. She won't let us think about leaving. All
And
is lost.
she
But
did
she was trying to leave.
Wanda
Yes, she
specifically.
did say Wanda. She did. And Vision, after she does that, because she has that kind of break and she won't stop laughing like a witch, Vision snaps her back in, and now she's back to her totally normal sitcom version of herself, upbeat, laughing. She's not stressed anymore, and she turns around to go, presumably, to the town square.
Yeah.
Halloween. So, whatever was going on with her before, it was done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I this was the one scene that really confused me. I didn't know how to unpack it because Agnes has been such a consistent character moving through this entire series that to have her all of a sudden act like everybody else when she was, even from the very first episode, she didn't act like every other person who was like in a trance or stuck in some sort of loop or obviously being controlled. So like, was she faking it? Is my other thing. Was she faking that to give Vision some sort of information that he needed to have? Like the idea, like planting the notion of being an Avenger in his head. I don't know. It was just such a break from what we've seen Agnes do this entire series that I was very confused by this scene. I hope there's something in the next few episodes that provides clarity for it.
Yes. I hope so too. Well, they don't have very long. They have a few more episodes.
Yeah,
they have story answering
stuff. Only 3 left.
Now we're back at Sword, and Monica is talking with her guy that he'll be there in an hour. They just have to meet him, and they'll be able to get back into the barrier. So we still know who that is. I'm still not 100% that we'll actually get to see who it is. And then so they're gonna go meet him, but Darcy says she's gonna stay. She also tells Monica not to go into the hex again because it rewrote her cells on a molecular level and it's changing her. And Monica doesn't care.
Yeah.
She knows how Wanda's feeling and she wants to help her.
Because I'm so focused on Wanda being like in control and in charge that it's like, no, Wanda's not. Like she is, but she's completely out of control because when you're grieving, you do things that are just like out of character.
Yes.
So
and Norm is also grieving.
Norm is also grieving.
His dad is sick.
That's right.
Yeah. So there's an interesting thing where the several people who are closer to her seem to also be grieving.
Yeah.
So then we go back to the town square, trick or treating. They're walking through the hay maze. Pietro says, "I think mom and dad would have loved it," which was a weird line to me. Something about the way he delivered it or something just didn't sit right with me. And Wanda said, "I think they would have too," but I don't know. There was something about that that was just off to me. Um,
I instantly thought, like, because I'm still of the mindset that he's the Fox universe Quicksilver, that he's from a version of the multiverse. I'm like, you guys have different mom and dads, and maybe he's aware of that.
maybe, yeah, maybe. Um, And then he goes he goes on one. He starts interrogating her essentially, very friendly, very playfully, like a brother, but like, where were you hiding all these kids? I'm sure they were sleeping. You've been really nice about keeping families together. Their personalities are the same. I'm impressed. It's a pretty big leap from nightmares and red wiggly woos.
Hmm.
How'd you even do this? You can tell me it's me, your brother. And Wanda still doesn't know. She describes how she was feeling, but she still doesn't know how they ended up here, how she did this. Um, she said she felt alone, completely empty, and an endless nothingness. And she turns around, and it's dead Pietro for a second, but he doesn't seem to notice his appearance changed.
Right.
And
Just
he even says like,
Vision didn't notice his appearance change when he was walking towards Wanda.
and he's like, "Are you okay?"
Mhm.
So here's where when I was watching it and she turned and saw him looking like that, where I went, "Oh, I think it is Nightmare." It didn't click for me with Vision before, but that's exactly the kind of thing that he would pull, is like, "Here's a hallucination of your dead brother real quick."
Right. What's funny is it clicked to me that it was Nightmare, like, kind of seconds before that. Like, the idea that it was like it was right before that
Yes.
happened. The idea that he was interrogating her on how she did certain things. Nightmare would definitely want to know all of that. Like, he would definitely be interested in how she accomplished all this so that he could potentially do this as well
Yes.
somehow.
Somehow.
So that's
Especially, like Peter says, pretty big leap from nightmares.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just was like, yeah, this is probably Nightmare, because it just was the idea of wanting all that information. And that just seemed very much in character for the Nightmare of comic books. And this would be a great transition of him into the MCU. So, and then the like cherry on the top of the sundae was, hey, here's a hallucination of your dead brother. Deal with
Yeah.
that really quick.
Deal with that. So I don't know that I'll go as far as to say that Peter is always Nightmare, but I think he's a vessel.
I think
Um
absolutely.
yeah, so he's one of the ways to get to Wanda.
Yeah, I don't think that when he was pulled in, whatever pulled him in, I don't necessarily think that was Nightmare.
Maybe.
Maybe it could have been, but I think that he's not always him, but he definitely has moments where he is. And I feel like Evan Peters as an actor is so good that the interrogation when he was asking her all those questions felt different than the time we saw him talking to Wanda before.
And
So
I think that's why the parent line bothered me, where I was like, something's off about this question, or this saying that the parents would have liked it. Something's really off about that.
so yeah, I definitely think he's a vessel. Nightmare has been known to hop between people, so maybe he's hopping between Agnes and Quicksilver, and we'll see who else. Uh, but definitely, I'm very much of the mindset that Nightmare is at least one of the villains that we're
Yes.
dealing with right now.
So, okay, so now we're back with Darcy. She finds a Hayward Eyes Only classified intel file called Cataract, and it's classified weapons intel. And she emails it to Jimmy, which bless her, because they've been separated. She doesn't know what's going to happen. I assume Jimmy will see that the next episode.
Yeah.
But then she gets distracted because Vision is approaching the barrier and all sorts of alarms and things are going off. And all the sword people run outside as Vision is like clawing his way through the barrier, really, really does not want to let him through. He makes it out and it's pulling him back piece by piece.
Mhm.
And he even falls like he did in Infinity War because, hey, let's watch Vision die again.
Yeah. I was like, oh my God, you're going to make me watch this another time. I can't do it.
What I thought was interesting is that the stone didn't disappear.
Yeah, I
So
noticed too.
it's
They
real.
pulled off other pieces of vibranium, but the stone
The
stayed.
stone stayed and it didn't vanish. It's real. And so here's maybe she pulled the stone from an adjacent universe.
Mhm.
Maybe she pulled the stone from the Fox universe, and that's why that Quicksilver is here now. Maybe she made a little rip.
I was going to say that's what I think that I was. Yeah, I completely agree. I think that maybe she pulled it from another universe and she created like a weakness in the barrier when she did that, and that's how Quicksilver got through. Also,
Yeah, I'm starting to think of the barrier a lot like the show Fringe. Did you,
oh yeah,
yeah. They would close off those areas with like that like sap
yeah.
stuff where
Mhm.
they were bleeding into each other because only one thing can survive, like the buildings are fighting with each other. And that is also how multiverse crossing over works in Marvel, is that that's how we got Battle World,
Mhm.
is that only one universe can survive, one
Yeah.
version of everything.
It also, I also think of it as like his dark materials with the subtle knife. Like you
Oh
have to pinch it closed. Like if you just like you can't just cut open the universe and not. But the Marvel universe. I mean, some universes like with Doctor Strange sit on top of each other and they're in different spots. But then actually, Fringe works a whole lot better for this metaphor.
yes.
But I didn't
uh
think of Fringe initially. I thought of, nope, she didn't do that. She
didn't close
cut,
it up.
yeah,
And she didn't, she maybe put a barrier around it to keep it from bleeding out into everywhere else.
yeah,
But there may be multiple people in the town that are from the Fox universe, maybe.
yeah.
Yeah. So Darcy is like yelling, help him, help him. They cuff her. It's very rude.
They cuff her to a car so she can't even move. It's not like
Yeah.
they cuffed her.
Yeah.
I was like, really? That she's like the least dangerous person there
Nope. So dangerous.
in terms of like being able to kill someone or hurt
Yeah.
someone. Like she could get the information. She's probably one of the smartest people there, but she's not dangerous. Why are you cuffing her to a car?
Uh, so we cut back to Billy, which is Billy getting his power because he can hear Vision
Yeah,
and he has a sense of where he is. And he also uses his powers to stop Tommy from running
yeah.
around. Yeah.
I was like, oh, Wiccan.
Yeah, so he's a little baby Wiccan. They go to Wanda. He says Dad's in trouble. um, Quicksilver makes the joke about how he can't die twice, and it really was Wanda was just irritated with him and made him go away.
No,
Uh, and Billy's able to tell her what Vision is seeing, which is the soldiers, so she knows where that is. And so she pauses, she does a mass pause of everything.
mhm,
Everything stops so that she can extend the barrier.
mhm.
Um, and so Jimmy and Monica, they're already way out of range.
Yeah,
They're fine. They speed up. They're not getting sucked back in. But most of Sword, in fact, I think everyone but Hayward and the two people that are with him
yeah.
got pulled into the barrier. And she makes them into a circus full of clowns because I'm sure that's how she feels about them.
Yep.
Darcy gets pulled in, obviously. That's why they handcuffed her to the thing, is so that she can be in the barrier now. I'm hoping that because Vision heard her saying help him
Mhm.
like don't just stand there, stuff like that, that one of the first things he does is wake her up so that they can talk. She knows something.
Yeah.
Um, and we see Wanda's red eyes, and that was it. That was the end of the episode. Very abrupt. Um,
And that's, I thought the episode felt short again.
it did. Hayward is probably gonna have to work with Jimmy and Monica. Like
Aww.
yeah, I know, but they're
Aww.
probably. I don't think that they want to work with him. But what are they supposed to do? Like they're the only ones left now, and they can call in more people. But apparently, at any time, the barrier could extend and suck you in.
So one of the reasons why I think we might see who Monica called is because of what happened at the end of that episode. Like,
Oh,
there's really no one else who can help. And she already has a rendezvous with this one person who's going to get them in.
yeah.
I think we might see who it is. And I think that at least might be some sort of Luke Skywalker reveal, in terms of, you know, Lizzie Olsen saying that we were going to get a major cameo. I
If
think
if
that
they
whoever,
cast Reed Richards
I
and
know,
no one knew, that
I
would be
know,
huge.
I know, that would be huge. It would be huge.
Um, yeah, because we talked about the possibilities for the other people, and so she said my guy. That doesn't necessarily mean is male, but now I feel like it's less likely that it's Ironheart
Yeah,
or Carol.
I agree. When she said my guy, I was like, I get that that's semi gender neutral, but I don't necessarily think I'd call a teenage girl at MIT
That's fair.
a guy. Um, but that's just me.
Totally fair.
Reed Richards is a real solid guess for this. Again, if it's Doctor Strange or someone, or he's not really aerospace, I just want him to be the cameo. That's why I keep throwing it
Yeah.
out.
I think they, even if he's, I doubt he's Wanda's contact, but I do still think he needs to show up at some point. Or
Yeah.
Monica's contact, but he obviously needs to still show up and do something.
Right. I mean, there are very few people in the MCU that can help at this point, and he's one of them.
Yeah.
So,
And he had a great in the Scarlet in the House of M, he just shows up because he sensed there was an abuse of magic, and he's real mad that no one told him Wanda was having problems.
yeah,
So I could see it being very similar.
that's exactly the reference that I like. I hope that scene happens. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just like, I actually hope that what happens is we do get to see whoever the contact is, because that person is an aerospace engineer and they're going to help. And that's a totally different cameo from the fact that all of a sudden that exact scene will happen in the final episode where Steven just shows up and was like, yo, you guys are all trying to solve this with science. Magic,
Nope.
magic.
How dare you not contact me?
Yeah. What in the ever living F has been going on here that nobody decided that I should be involved?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's probably the first person you should have called.
Yeah.
Yep. And like we said, Nightmare being the villain, possibly Doctor Strange coming in makes sense.
Yeah. Because, and again, like, well, they haven't met obviously in the MCU because we haven't met Nightmare in the MCU.
Right.
But this would be a great way for Nightmare to develop his ongoing Stephen Strange obsession, where if Doctor Strange has to come in and solve all this problem, like all these problems in all of Westview, and like take Wanda under his wing, I could definitely see Nightmare being like, hello.
Oh, who's this?
Oh, who's this? Oh, Sorcerer Supreme, you say? Interesting. Like, that would be so great. Like, I would die. I would just be laughing like so hard because I love Nightmare and I love Steven dealing with Nightmare.
Yeah, Nightmare is sort of to me kind of like his Loki, his Doctor
Yeah,
Strange's Loki. Like he's always showing up, causing trouble. Why won't he leave me alone?
totally his Loki. And I always thought of him as Q to Picard. Like he
Yeah.
was just showing up, and Picard's like, my God.
You again.
Yeah, you again. That's kind of what it's like. It's Loki showing up like, oh, like really? Can you just like
Get
uh,
me.
yeah, I that so my hope for the end of the show is that we get this huge cameo and that's the aerospace engineer and oh my God, look at this cameo. And everybody's so distracted by the cameo that they're like, Stephen Strange.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, please. Um, oh, and I forgot to mention this when we were talking about Nightmare earlier, but Nightmare was able to like possess someone and then get someone pregnant. So even though we're used to the twins being made from Mephisto, they might be doing that MCU thing where they flip it and they're nightmares.
Yeah.
His kid,
Nightmare. Okay. Sorry. When she saw Vision as dead, that was in the same episode where she gave birth.
yes. Yeah, so they might be nightmares, not Mephistos. Flipping the script. In the comics, he has one son, Terrence Ward, who goes by Trauma, and he's a shapeshifter who can turn into whatever you're most afraid of. So he's Marvel's Boggart. And Trauma tries really hard to be a good guy, but it's very difficult when that's your power.
Yeah, that's a very difficult power to
Yeah.
make good.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, yeah. Maybe they nightmare babies.
Oh my God. Sorry. I just really like Nightmare. And ever since we were texting about this being like the possibility, I have been like so hyped on this idea.
Yeah. Oh, also, Nightmare is a Loki villain, and the Loki show is coming up, and it appears to actually have a lot of influence from one of the runs where Loki's dealing with Nightmare, which is the Dan Kibblesmith's very short Loki run. It's like 5 issues. It's when he becomes the true king of the Jotunheim, and now Nightmare decides to mess with Loki a bunch because he's mad at him.
Yeah. That's why Nightmare is hilarious. Because Nightmare doesn't seem to have like a really terrible motivation. He just kind of wants to annoy people.
I'll make you dream bad stuff.
I'll make you dream bad stuff, but I'll also give you what you want in this weird way. Like it's just, I love Nightmare because he could so easily be a good guy if you just thought of him that way.
Oh yeah, and he has done good guy stuff sometimes if it's in his best interest, like Loki.
They're very adjacent, and you know what? I'm all about this being Nightmare now, and I'm trying to cast it. So I really want everybody who watches this video, and I'm probably going to make a short clip of this to put on our Instagram because I really want to know who you all would cast as Nightmare.
Yes, great question. And I don't know, even if it is Nightmare in the show, we may not see him. He might only be showing up through other people.
That's fair.
Because that would also help them cover like leaks.
That's true.
If it seems like the villain is someone who's already in the cast. We haven't seen Dottie in a while. Maybe Nightmare mostly goes through her, or it will for the last couple episodes.
It's true. Also, I just really, oh my gosh, I would love, Evan Peters would make a great Nightmare.
He would make a great Nightmare.
Just a Nightmare. But that goes with what you were saying. Whoever he is, let's just keep him.
Let's just keep him. Keep Evan Peters. If he's being possessed by Nightmare and it turns out he's the Fox Quicksilver, he could just stay in this universe.
Yeah, that's fine. But yeah, I would love to know who y'all would cast as Nightmare because I'm
Yes.
having a very hard time with this. And I'm going to tell you, I cried when Benedict Cumberbatch was cast as Stephen Strange, like legit cried. I was so happy with how perfect that casting is. So it needs to be a casting that'll make me cry again.
And a good foil for Benedict Cumberbatch.
A good foil for him.
Mhm.
Has to be a good foil for him.
Okay, so as usual, we have several questions. I do want to say that you guys are always on the same page as us. So if we ever don't ask your question, or read your question, it's usually because we answered it in the episode, because we do have like, who was Wanda's son dressed up as, and is the intro Malcolm in the Middle, stuff like that. Yes, and
Yes, and Wiccan.
Speed and Wiccan. Yeah.
And Wiccan, and yes.
I am Payne 1618.
Ah,
Oh, why would Pietro pester Wanda with so many questions if he isn't Mephisto? Which we did talk about. He might be Nightmare instead. But yeah, he could still be Mephisto. It's not off the table.
I don't think that's off the table. Though I do like now I think it's more of a red herring situation just because they're like, look at the devils, guys. Like,
Unleash hell, demon spawn.
yeah. And then like, oh, look at the devil right there. Like they're just I do just because they're being more and more obvious with it, I do think it's gonna be like a bait and switch situation, but it could still be Mephisto.
It could still be Mephisto. Uh, Lirazilla.
Mm-hmm.
Hello. He asks a question every
Hi.
week. Do you think the kid in the commercial is representing Vision?
We covered that we think it's one of the possibilities.
Man.
But that commercial's just I don't want to talk about the commercial anymore. Let's go back
Okay.
to the Nightmare.
Brie Laundry. I've been thinking about this for weeks. Did Carol get to say goodbye to Maria?
Free. Um,
I think so.
I think so too. And like Tab said, that I'm gonna cry every time this gets brought up. I don't know what this is. I think Tab is totally right. I think the reason her hair is short is because she shaved it for Maria.
Yeah, and she obviously came when Fury paged her,
Mhm.
and got there very quickly because they were still figuring stuff out on the Avengers end, and they have her go get Tony and Nebula, and she gets back, and I'm sure she goes to see if Maria survived,
Yeah.
if Monica survived, and that's when she would have the opportunity to find out, like, oh, they're going through cancer treatment, all sorts of stuff. Also, now that I'm thinking about it, that she didn't come back to Earth very much after, like in the blip time.
Yeah.
She didn't have anyone to come back for anymore.
Right. Because
Monica's
Monica
gone,
got
Maria's
snapped.
gone.
Yeah. Monica got
Ni-
snapped and Maria died.
And
That's
Fury got snapped too. So they're just,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So
That's
that
why
might
that makes total sense.
she might be avoiding Earth the way that Peter Quill does. Mediocre Jedi. What do you think is going to happen to Darcy?
I don't know.
I think it seems like the clothes that we saw in that one poster where everyone's like, what are those clothes with the weird like applique design on the front? So it seems like she's gonna get some cool clothes.
Yeah, but I'm also worried because does the hex rewrite everyone on a molecular level? Because then
Yeah.
is Darcy going to get powers?
Is it
Is everyone going to get powers?
does it rewrite everyone on a molecular level, or was there something already in Monica's DNA and makeup the way that Pietro and Wanda responded to the Mind Stone and no one else did?
Right.
So again, going with the how do we bring mutants into this, maybe this.
Yeah.
Maybe this is the start of it.
Yeah.
But presumably if Wanda wanted, I guess she could give everyone in that town powers.
Yeah. Or if they had them, take them away.
Or if they had them, take them away. No more powers.
No more powers.
I think
No more mutants.
I think that Vision will wake her up. I think they did a good job of setting up Vision sees someone who wanted to help him. He gets sucked back in. Now all these other people are here. I think he will seek her out. He is really looking for answers and trying to find help.
I completely agree. I think he's going to seek her out, and I think that there's going to be like Darcy Vision.
Oh,
Yeah.
she gets to be on her favorite show now.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think he's going to wake her up, and I think that there's going to she's going to help him figure out what, like, how to help Wanda.
Yeah.
Because also
Oh yeah.
seems very much like, you know, she's in Monica's camp of wanting to help Wanda. So go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, and if he does wake her up, she'll also be able to say like, people are coming to help.
Right.
We have more people who are trying to come to help.
Right.
Because Vision can wake up a bunch of people, useful people,
Mm-hmm.
then they can probably start figuring stuff out from the inside more.
Yep.
This is a fun. Oh, this is I am Pain 1618 again. You got some good questions. Why could her son hear and feel Vision in trouble, but Wanda couldn't?
Because, well, I think that has to do with what we talked about at the beginning, that exchange between the two of them. I think that either she's trying not to control him or feel him, or she can't anymore.
Yeah, can he block her? Maybe.
The Mind Stone's intact, so
Yeah.
in theory he can.
Yeah, so he might.
I mean,
she might not be able to see him because he didn't want her to know where he was.
Right. And going back all the way to like Infinity War, she had to feel him through the stone. Like she couldn't just feel him on his own.
That's true.
Like that was something that was like a thing that they've established, that like maybe it's because he's a synthezoid. There's something that blocks her powers a little bit, or her powers work differently that way. But personally, it just reminded me of the like, Viz, what's wrong? And he was like, the stone is talking to me. And she was like, I just feel you. Like,
it's also,
yeah.
Wanda is maybe at capacity right now for things she can handle. And if she really is, even if she's only mind controlling like the 20 people closest to her at any given moment, right. That is a lot of voices and work that's going on that would maybe block him out.
And in addition to that, think about when you're a child. When you're a child, your whole world is like your parents and your siblings, your family, essentially. Like even when you go to school, that's still like the core of your being is like your mom, your dad, your siblings. Like, so Billy could be way more just in tune with his family in general, because that's his whole world, versus Wanda's literally creating a world so that her family can exist perfectly. It's like macro and micro. Yeah. So that could be it too. Well, that is what we have for you today from WandaVision episode 6. I still just keep getting weirded out that my sanctum disappears in the sanctum. So that happens. Anyway, we again apologize for the lateness of this episode, but hopefully you are still watching. You're still watching WandaVision on Disney Plus. There are 3 episodes left, and we are MCU Explained. I'm Susan.
I'm Tab.
And we are coming to you from the Sanctum and Cigar. And all of our social media information is in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. Leave your questions and your comments. We really appreciate all the views, and like us and subscribe us. Yeah? Yeah.
Yes.
Subscribe to us. We will see you in the next video.